Magic has its history. Most people know only a couple of names such as Harry Houdini. Magicians may know some more, but normally we do not look at magic as a performing art with a long and unique history. My name is Alex Romanov. I am a magician and an art historian. Today I will tell you the complete history of magic in 10 minutes. You are watching Art of Impossible. Let's start the clock. The classic story that you will find in most books on the history of magic is that the first magic tricks were performed in ancient Egypt. This story comes from the West Cap Papyrus, an ancient document that was written in 1700 BC and that described events from earlier times. It tells about Jedi, a magician who was 110 years old and who appeared before the pharaoh of Egypt and did some amazing things. He took a goose, severed its head, and then made the body of the goose walk towards its head and reconnect with it. Nice story, sounds indeed like a clever magic trick, but there is no historical evidence of the existence of Jedi. We know that the decapitation illusion was very popular later, but we do not have any real facts about magicians performing tricks in ancient Egypt. We have more descriptions of magic performances from later times. A 3rd century Greek writer Alciphron told about a performer who did a trick with 3 cups and 3 pebbles, and made pebbles disappear and reappear under the cups. Of course, it sounds like it was a trick that we now know as the cups and balls. So we can be sure that in the first centuries, magic entertainment already existed. Fast forward to the Middle Ages. We know that people were persecuted as witches at this time, and one can assume that it could be difficult to be a magician. In 1584, Reginald Scot published a book, The Discovery of Witchcraft. Scot was skeptical about witchcraft and he wrote this book to debunk it. He wanted to show that witches did not have any real magical powers. To prove it, he wanted to show that one could simply imitate the supernatural phenomena. So he explained some magic tricks, like how to make a coin disappear using sleight of hand and without signing contracts with the devil. It is important to say that even though people believed in witchcraft, they could distinguish between witches and magicians who were just entertainers. If you were a magician in the Middle Ages and you openly admitted that you were performing a trick, no one would burn you. So if you performed a trick with cups and balls in the street like this guy on the famous painting of Bosch, most probably the worst thing that would happen to you would be that you just wouldn't get paid. Many magicians of the time were street entertainers, and the trick with cups and balls was indeed very popular. It was not this cool, dynamo, David Blaine kind of street magic, it was hard work for little money. But there were magicians who managed to prosper. For example, Isaac Fox earned a fortune by performing in his booth at fairs and markets where he demonstrated his sleight of hand skills. The 17th century magician William Vincent performed for James, the King of England, and his stage name was remembered forever, and you know it as well. Hocus Pocus. 18th century. Time of change. René Descartes says, "I think, therefore I am," and so begins the period of enlightenment, the time of reason and knowledge. People travel more, read more, publish more books, discover new lands and new laws of nature. Magicians who succeeded at this time were those who adapted their shows to the topic of the day and presented not just magic tricks but scientific wonders and incorporated demonstrations of magnetism and electricity in their shows. One of the most important names of the time was Pinetti, a magician who performed for all the European aristocracy and presented himself as a natural philosopher who did experiments. In the middle of the 19th century, magicians began to use the power of marketing. John Henry Anderson, aka the Wizard of the North, as he called himself, because he was from Scotland and it is in the north, became a superstar of his time. He created incredible advertising campaigns in every city, performed, as he said, for every royal family in Europe, including the Tsar of Russia. He even printed his own newspaper and built his own theater. One can only imagine what he could achieve if he had access to YouTube and Instagram. The 19th century gave us a name that most magicians in the world have heard. A French performer who is known as the father of modern magic. Please give a big round of applause for Jean Robert-Houdin. He was a watchmaker, an inventor and a skillful magician. He performed his delightful wonders in a small theater in the center of Paris. Why is he the father of modern magic? Well, the standard story goes like this. Before Robert-Houdin, magicians were street performers. They were old-fashioned, wore weird black robes and hats with stars, and used strange-looking props. After Robert-Houdin, magicians started to wear elegant evening suits, became classy, started to perform magic with everyday objects, and doing shows for a sophisticated audience in a beautiful theater. This story is a big exaggeration, and it was created by Robert-Houdin himself. He wrote memoirs in which he made his life, career and achievements look revolutionary and amazing. And his memoirs became very popular. This is how his legend was born. However, we have to admit that Robert-Houdin was a great magician and was indeed praised for his elegance and charming performing style. An important part of his show was presenting his clever mechanical inventions, such as the growing orange tree, a trick that was reproduced by many magicians since then, and also by Edward Norton in the movie Illusionist, where they recreated it with 3D effects. It is also true that in the 19th century a magician was no longer a street performer. He was a modern gentleman, or she was an elegant lady performing in a theater or in a music hall. It was finally cool to be a magician. The golden age of magic begins. Economy grows, the middle class starts to appear, people now have free leisure time and some extra money so they can afford to go to a theater to be entertained. Show business starts to grow and magic becomes as popular as never before. New stars of magic keep appearing and creating amazing illusions that also influence the development of culture and arts. In 1862, John Henry Pepper presented what we now call the Pepper's Ghost, a technology that could make ghostly figures appear on a theater stage. Fun fact, in 2012 at the Coachella Music Festival, they used a similar principle to make Tupac Shakur appear on stage with Snoop Dogg. Alright, back to magic. In 1886, magician Boîtier de Colta made a woman disappear on stage, and this illusion became known as the Vanishing Lady. It became one of the most copied illusions of the 19th century. The problem of copying and imitation in magic remains important until nowadays. But on the other hand, it motivated de Colta and other creators to invent new secrets and methods. Georges Méliès, a French magician, got his hands on a cinema projector and explored the idea of a jump cut, and started creating his short magical films, the first films with special effects. Magic became a booming industry, and in 1911 two British magicians, David Devant and Neville Maskelyne, published a book, Our Magic, in which they proclaimed that magic was not circus, not entertainment, not show business. Magic was a fine art, just like painting or sculpture. Moving on, September 1912, Berlin, Germany. Eric Weiss performs a stunning illusion, Chinese water torture cell. You probably know him as Harry Houdini. He created his stage name Houdini from Robert-Houdin because he was his big fan. Well, at first he was, and then he actually hated him, but that's a different story. Houdini tried different types of magic, but he achieved his true fame as an escape artist. His act was a combination of skill, showmanship and trickery, and it was a sensation in America and in Europe. December 1920, Mr. Selbit performs his Sewing Woman in Half, one of the most iconic illusions ever created. Magic is still popular and magicians still create colorful stage shows, but the time of vaudeville is close to its end. New types of magic began to develop. Apparatus and magic boxes are not that impressive anymore, and it made sense to focus on an instrument much more delicate: the human hand. Sleight of hand magic was reinvented. Canadian magician Dai Vernon dedicated his life to the development of close-up and card magic and brought it to a completely new level. You did not need a huge stage and assistants anymore. Everything you needed was a deck of cards and you could create miracles and entertain your audience for hours. In 1984, big illusions became cool again. David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear and then produced even more stunning, large-scale illusions and became a household name all over the world. We live in a modern world, we explore space, we have gadgets and artificial intelligence, and yet magicians keep finding new ways to astonish us, to show us something that will leave us speechless. We know with our minds that magic is not real, but magicians give us a unique chance to have an emotional experience of impossible. The art of magic reminds us that the world is full of mystery. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a comment, tell me what you think, subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss the next episode, and also if you have friends who are magicians or interested in magic or in performing arts, history of culture, share this video with them, it will mean really a lot to me. This was Art of Impossible, my name is Alex Romanov, I'll see you next time.